Hello and welcome, I'm Oles Gerjuk and you're watching Head to Head on UATV. 4 years ago, Ukraine chose its future by reversing its political direction towards the European Union. The country signed the Ukraine-EU Association Agreement, which came into force only half a year ago. So far, according to Ukraine's Office on European and Euro-Atlantic Integration, Ukraine has met its European integration commitments by 41%. And the European Union ambassador to Ukraine, Hugh Mingarelli, has said that over the past 4 years, Ukraine has made significant progress, quote, in very difficult circumstances. To evaluate this progress and to discuss what is still to be done, we are joined in the studio today by Lyubov Akulenko, director of the Ukrainian Center for European Policy. Hello, and thank you for being with us today.
Good afternoon.
So, Mr. Akulenko, recently the Ukrainian Prime Minister, together with the head of the Ukrainian Parliament, have presented a, so to say, roadmap of reforms which need to be implemented in order to join the European Union or to fulfill the EU Association Agreement, right? And the head of the Ukrainian Parliament, Andriy Parubiy, has said that these are the bills which form, well, this roadmap consists of bills which form serious connections between Ukraine and the European Union. Could you tell us what is the role of such a document and what are these bills that he is talking about?
I just want to make a small clarification that association agreement does not provide the possibility to join
yeah, but
EU.
we could be just closer to the European Union.
Yeah, but it's very important since lots of people in EU are afraid about such possibilities that in the nearest future Ukraine can join the EU, so association agreement does not provide such possibility. What is this document about? I want to stress that Ivana Klympush-Tsentsadze, it's our Vice Prime Minister who is responsible for European integration. She initiated this process to elaborate special roadmap that will include all those draft laws that we have to adopt to implement association agreement, and these draft laws will provide closer economic integration with European Union. Why it's important? Since if we do not have membership perspective, we do not have like a strong political motivator for our business, for different stakeholders to adopt EU standards that are very painful and very costly for our business. We need a strong political leadership. So for me, it looks like it's a first step for political leadership when we have one document that was agreed by Vice Prime Minister that is responsible for European integration, the head of the Parliament and the Prime Minister and the head of EU delegation. It looks like that we made the first step, political step, to make the process of association agreement implementation more easier, since it's not easy task.
Just to make it clear, this is some kind of the list of the further reforms. Am I correct?
This is a list of draft laws that need to be adopted. And they have connections to two parts of association agreement: DCFTA, Deep and Comprehensive Free Trade Agreement, and sectoral cooperation like transport cooperation, healthcare cooperation, and etc., etc.
What time frame does this roadmap describe?
This roadmap is elaborated for 2 years, like 2018 and 19.
And how many bills are already mentioned in there?
In this document, it looks like there are 56 draft laws and preliminarily 15 sectors.
Are they already submitted in the Ukrainian Parliament?
They are already registered in Ukrainian Parliament, but they are on a different level of how to say, to be ready to be adopted in the Parliament. Because if the draft law is registered in the Parliament, it does not mean that it is agreed with all the stakeholders, with all the members of the Parliament, and that it is ready for adoption.
Of course, of course. But what spheres do these draft bills, do these draft laws bring a change into?
Custom regulation, transport regulation, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, have connection to agrarian sector. social policy, environmental policy, so such absolutely different sectors that can change our everyday life.
Mm-hmm. But do we have to distinguish political and economic changes for Euro integration and evaluate each one separately? I mean, in this list.
The problem is that it is not a problem, it's specific of association agreements that we have like 5 chapters in association agreement, and only 2 chapters that I mentioned before, trade and economical cooperation, they have annexes with list of EU regulations that we have to adopt. And that's why it looks like that we have to adopt lots of laws that have connection to trade and to economical cooperation. So it's such is life. But I think that it is not a problem, since all this regulation is so technical. On one hand, it's technical, but it's fundamental. It can change our everyday life. It provides not only opportunity for our business to export and to change standards, but also it provides us, like consumers, possibility to be more protected in in different sectors.
Which economic changes look the most and the least favorable, in your opinion?
If to speak about association agreement,
yes.
The biggest problem of the agreement, as I mentioned before, that we do not have membership perspective. We do not have strong political motivator. And currently now we have only like one sector where all the stakeholders understand the profit from association agreement. It's agrarian sectors, because all the business have, most of all agrarian business are using the possibilities that provides association agreement. They are exporting their products, they are receiving profits, and they are not blocking the process, because they understand for what they need to adopt all these expensive and costly standards. All others, business in all other sectors that even do not have an intention to export, they do not understand why do they need to adopt this expensive...
To go in compliance with the EU standards,
yeah, because
right?
we do not have membership perspective. For what reason I need to change it? Just to protect
more money, yes.
Just to protect consumers, okay, but it's not an argument. So it's like a difficult discussion in the parliament and in different sectors. For example, transport sector. On all our buses, we need to put special vehicles for speed limitation. They are very expensive, and all those companies that are making their operations on EU market, our Ukrainian transport companies, they have already these speed limitation vehicles. But in Ukraine, they are not ready to do this, because it's very expensive, and they cannot understand why in Ukraine we should do this. We should do it only for EU if we are operating in EU. But such norm provides a possibility for us, people who are using buses, to be more protected, because first reason how to protect yourself as a passenger in a car is to limit the speed.
To limit the speed, right?
Yeah, and it's possible with such vehicles, but they are expensive.
And what are your other thoughts on some other bills? Some pluses and minuses, advantages and disadvantages of the different ones.
Currently, I am rather happy that in the first list of this roadmap, because this roadmap is divided into three blocks. First blocks consist of those draft laws that are completely ready for adoption. It means that they are agreed with all the stakeholders, all the members of the parliament, and I am happy to see here some draft laws that have connection to custom regulations, since for more than 3 years we do not provide any result in this sector. And one very important draft law that is translated like authorized economic operators. Why they are important, these operators? Since it's like a special institution that is very popular in EU. What does it provide? It provides a possibility for Ukrainian companies to have easy trade operations on our custom.
So does it abolish some duties?
Yeah. The main thing that what do they predict. The first thing is to reduce the quantity of documents for our companies who wants to export, and the second option is to make the process of transition on our custom not so long.
Mm-hmm.
So for more than 3 years it was discussed, this draft law. I do not understand why our members of the parliament were not ready to introduce such institution of economic operators in Ukraine, but it looks like that they currently are ready to create such institution. And it's very important. If we create such institution, it means that big business will be very happy to transit to cross the border, because it's trade. It's not only about duties, but it's also about custom. It's your time.
This is true, and
so it's about the time.
Another positive thing, I think, that there were duties abolished on import of electronic cars, on goods made of porcelain, and filming and movie producing equipment. Any other tax changes are coming this year, not for the economic operators, but, for example, for just regular people?
If to speak about people, all us like consumers, there are some draft laws, but they are not included in the first sector. It means in the first blocks. It means that they need some
further discussion
and consultations. Such draft laws that can be interested for all of us. It has connection to sanitary and phytosanitary measures, to agrarian export.
Mm-hmm.
It has connection to information for consumers, that is market that is labeled on food. Why it is important? Because in EU it is very important that producer provide all the information about food on its label.
Very accurate information. That's great.
For example, you need to show all the allergens, because it's very important.
Yes, all the harmful ingredients, everything basically.
Also, all the ingredients that you put inside, because in Ukraine, not all ingredients are
listed.
Are listed on the label. The third option is the size of the letters. In Ukraine, they can be very small. In EU, they should be bigger, and etc., etc. So, but currently, this draft law is discussed very much with business, because business is afraid of all these demands. Business is sure that they are very strict and costly, but I'm sure that it is not the question of money. It's just the question that it's not easy to make our business to play with EU standards. Mm-hmm. Every time when you are trying to introduce EU standards in different sectors, here we are speaking about information for consumers. Business is not ready. They said that it's very painful for us. We should to change all labeling, etc., etc. But slowly we are moving.
How much are you afraid of corruption happening in the process of voting for this kind of bills?
When
the interest of businessmen is very visible.
The only thing that can happen, all the corruption plays when the draft law is discussed in the committees and with members of the parliament. It is like a playground for corruption. When the draft law is voted in Verkhovna Rada, I even cannot remember when some places of corruption take place, some examples of corruptions take place. But, for example, what can happen if norms are very painful for some kind of business, and these representatives are not, for example, they were included, but their position was not like a win position, and they do not manage to agree it with all other stakeholders. They are worrying, and some of the members of the parliament can, for example, just raise their hand and start to say that this draft law is very bad. We do not recommend to support it, and etc., etc. Such things can happen, but it's impossible to predict.
But do these draft laws go through some review for compliance with the EU standards, for example?
All these draft laws, when they are elaborated, that they are based on EU norms. So we have Office of Vice Prime Minister. They are analyzing all draft laws. We have European Integration Committee in Verkhovna Rada. They also are analyzing all draft laws. But the problem is the next, that very often when the draft law is like, we have like a first reading or a first draft law that is like zero. It's absolutely based on EU norms, and when you start to discuss it with different stakeholders, you should change it, because during the discussions you understand that if you just copy all the EU norms, it will be impossible to adopt it in our parliaments. Such is our reality. So if you should choose, or you will bring clear draft law with all EU demands, but it is a big risk that it will not be supported, or you will change some norms, but it will be supported. So,
and you will balance between EU
and Ukrainian
our way, reality.
We have results now because we are trying to look for consensus, because it's impossible just to copy and paste.
But is there a deadline to fulfill all the requirements for implementing?
According to association agreement, we should adopt all these draft laws till 2025. Not these draft laws that are in this roadmap, but those draft laws that are predicted in association agreement.
On a much bigger scale. In your opinion, how successful are we in this?
If to speak about legal approximation process, we are not very successful from my point of view, since we have like 15 sectors, and only 3 sectors are very successful: agrarian sector, technical regulation, energy, and public procurement. In all other sectors, we cannot provide results, and I'm very happy that we have such roadmap, and I believe that this roadmap will help us to push all other sectors that are not successful. But I will stress again that from my personal point of view, the biggest problem is that all these standards are very painful for us, and we do not have political motivation.
Well, at least this is a step forward in the regulation and legislation, and let's see what happens further. And thank you so much for this conversation.
You're welcome.
That was Lyubov Akulenko, Director of the Ukrainian Center for European Policy. Thank you for watching Head to Head. I'm Oles Gerjuk. Goodbye.